Hi everyone, it's James here from Production Expert, and the lady next to me needs no introduction whatsoever. Sylvia, Massy, thank you so much for joining me here at Studioszene 2019.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Welcome to Analogue Heaven, quite frankly.
Yes.
Do you get to work on
Yeah.
proper boards still?
Yeah. Well, I have a Neve of my own, but I love the older SSLs like this E. This is an E with a G computer. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it is. What is that? It's a G.
G, yeah.
It's a G.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Great consoles, vintage consoles. I love to work with them because they were made to some microphones together, and they have bussing, and that just seems to be missing now. The ability to bus microphones together.
So you've been doing several workshops and kind of seminars, and I caught yesterday a particularly brilliant seminar almost on stuff that you never hear talked about: studio design and construction and cables. And cables are one of those things that I think is sorely underestimated in studios.
Yeah.
It's so important. You're in the process of building a new facility right now?
Yes, I'm building a mix room in our new building.
So tell us about some of the preparation and the sort of pre-design work that's gone into that new facility.
Well, I want this new system to be very versatile. I want it to be a proper mix system with analog summing, but then I also want to be able to do overdubs in the same room and have a couple of specialty consoles. One is an old broadcast RCA, and I want to be able to patch into that whenever I need to and use the mic preamplifiers. And I also have a loop trotter console that has 500 series modules that you can customize. You can customize your own modules in the frame, the 500 series frame of this console.
Is it bright yellow as well?
Yes, it's bright yellow. And so anyway, that's a 16-channel console. And I want to be able to go between all the gear in the room easily. So part of the planning for this new room includes taking everything that will be used and putting it into patch bays. So I've planned out my patch bays, and beyond that, then I am planning the cabling, the length of the cabling, where things will be positioned, and then calculating the lengths of cables and what the end connectors will be on each of these cables, and the type of patch bay and how it's normaled. All these things are considered, and then where my headphone amps are going to be and how the monitors are going to be set up in the room and the cabling to those monitors and the length of cables. So measuring that, there's a lot of pre-thought into it.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of I think I'm a bit pre that as well. I'm kind of pre-designing my next studio at the moment. So it's been really nice to actually come around and see at a show people having similar discussions, like what's my workflow, what's my methodology, what's my ergonomics, where does X, Y, Z need to go?
Right, so the way I have it set up for this new studio is I've got a workstation in front of me with an angled computer monitor, so I can get it very close because I do love the touch screen angled computer monitor, and then an upper monitor, and then a huge giant monitor so I can do film, some visual work as well, and then my main audio monitoring, plus the extra large. I've got some Genelec 1038As, which are huge, and they're softeted. But then I've got these little consoles. I've got the RCA over here, and I've got the loop trotter over here. So now I've made a horseshoe kind of setup, and I'll have to build custom furniture to really get it to where I want it.
That's very cool.
But it's so exciting to build a studio, It's one of the great things.
I think as well, it becomes an extension of you and your the way you work, and you want to get it to absolutely everything to be totally comfortable, because I think that way then you're it's not let's face it, it's not a chore going to work for anyone in our industry.
It's not.
It's
every
a lie.
day it's great.
I always feel terrible. I say to my wife, I'm going to work. I'm not going to work.
No, going to work. Yeah, every day.
So tell us a little bit about your your workflow? Obviously, would you say now are you primarily a mixer or an engineer or a producer?
There's so many jobs that I do, and it depends on where I'm needed, but I can fill any position. So I'll be an engineer to another producer if someone wants to hire me. My rates are a little expensive for that, but I do get hired as an engineer now and then. But mainly I'm producing projects, so I start from the ground up and produce and follow through mixing if needed. Lately, I'm also getting a lot of mix work that comes from long distance. So I don't live in Los Angeles anymore. I live in Oregon, which is up in the mountains.
Yeah, lovely.
So I get shipped, people send it through the internet, the files, and then I'll mix and we correspond long distance.
So will you get a Pro Tools session or will you just get the bare
Either
stems?
Either way, I prefer to get the stems. I prefer to get tracks, wave files, and then I'll import them into a new session. And then the first thing I do is I turn down all the levels and then I import my template and then I begin to work.
So let's talk about this template, because a lot of people, I have my mix template, I have my tracking template. What's your starting point? So when you say, okay, so do you have the plugins already in the template, or is it just a routing template, or do you have particular things that you fall back on?
Well, everything in the template is routed already, and I divide the mix, the tracks, the wave files up into different categories, like drum track.
Yeah.
Drum tracks are all together, bass tracks are all together, piano tracks, lead vocals, backing vocals are all in groups, and then those groups all go into a sum that's in the template. Now, within the template, I also have dummy tracks for each of these groups.
Right.
And on the dummy track, I preload all the plugins that I might use on those tracks and all the sends. So it's very easy when I bring in my wave files, I put them into their groups, the instruments into their pre-made groups, and then I just drag from the dummy track all the sends and plugins onto the tracks.
That's very cool.
And bam!
So none of this waiting for routing, and it's all there.
Yeah, you don't have
to
to reinvent it every time, and especially after you finish the first song in a project. Like, say you have a group of songs from the same artist. Typically, most of the sounds will be relating to each other or similar, so that once you get the first mix finished, I create a new template from that, and that becomes the template for the entire record.
So this came from Audrey, who is one of
I love Audrey.
One of the content creators on our team, and she also did Mix with the Masters with you at La Fabrique. For this particular kind of, I said, I'm interviewing Sylvia tomorrow. Give me some heads up. Where should I go? And she said, talk about food. Talk about food.
You mean food as in audio?
Yeah, audio food.
Okay.
So, doing my diligent research, as one does. So anything with cheese, apparently, in electric guitars.
All right. Well, it was by accident that I found out that you can use various food items as filters, audio filters.
Right.
So when you're in the studio, you can have some fun with your artist and maybe put their guitar through a potato.
Right.
All right. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun. You just you take a speaker cable and you go from your, let's say, a guitar amplifier, the speaker cable that goes to the speaker, interrupt that and insert
food stuff of your choice.
Food, potato. Potatoes have a nice high shelf.
Right.
Sausages are relatively flat, but cheese sausage has an incredible tone.
Right.
So I thought, well, what is the difference between a regular sausage and a cheese sausage? It's the cheese.
Yeah.
So I just took cheese. I got a block of Gouda, and I put the wires through it, so the audio goes through the cheese on the way to the speaker. Amazing blues tone. Amazing. And there may be a scientific explanation for this. Salt is very conductive, sodium chloride, right? So what you're getting there with the cheese is that filter effect, and it's very conductive. It's more conductive than you would even think.
That's hilarious.
Isn't it funny?
But I get the feeling from the little bit of research, you know, I'm diligent. A lot of what your studio kind of vibe is about having fun. I mean, we know it's not supposed to be difficult, but a lot of people get very kind of angst, and you have a few kind of rituals that you do with artists and bands that you work with. I love the one about the guitar. Can you explain that one a little bit about decorating the guitar and then the destruction of?
Well, every session is different, but I try to make everyone part of the activity by giving them ideas at the beginning. I give everyone a job basically, and oftentimes we will schedule an event to happen towards the end of the session, so that we all have something to look forward to. And it's usually maybe an off-site recording. Let's say we save for the very last tracking day, we're going to go outside and we're going to get into a car and we're going to record the last vocals in a car.
Right, that's cool.
For no reason in particular except
because we can.
Because we can. Yeah. And surprisingly, that makes everyone excited to finish their tracks, so there's no slowdown.
Yeah.
You know, people get excited about that last day.
Tracking
it can be very tedious, and you can get really into the minutia and distracted by all the tiny details that really don't matter. So I try to move quickly through tracking and make it fresh and spontaneous. And then we get to that last day, and then we all celebrate by going out and doing something special. For the Machines of Love and Grace record, we actually had a sacrificial guitar in the session throughout the whole session, and we had planned for the last day we would take the sacrificial guitar and go up to the top of a cliff and throw it off the cliff and record it. And
wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, it had a very long instrument cable on it. The noise was incredible, and there was like a canyon that above the ocean. It was reflective and an amazing noise. Ultimately, the sound of it, even though we recorded it, it didn't have a place on that record. But we'll never, ever forget.
Definitely.
The sacrificial guitar.
That's what it's about, isn't it? It's supposed to we're creating emotion and memories, and as much for the artist when they're in the studio as for the audience who's listening to it on CD. Do we still make those anymore?
CDs. I haven't seen one for a while.
It's been a long time. Sylvia, thank you so much for coming to see us.
All right.
My name's James Ivey from Production Expert. We'll see you again soon.